I was genuinely convinced that I'd like aced this test. I was going to walk out and they were going to be like, wow, your hearing's incredible. Engrave my name on a board. So when I came out, and this was NHS as well. So when I came out and they were like, sit down, here's your hearing graph. You have hearing loss in both ears, but it's bad enough on one side that we think you should have at least one hearing aid. It was proper jaw on the floor moment. And then over the last few years, it's been looking back and thinking, actually, I was sitting in the front row at school so I could hear the teacher or understand what they were saying or lip read, but I didn't know that's what it was.
Yes.
And people called me a goody two-shoes and a suck-up. But I was like, I don't know how you understand what's going on in the lesson if you don't sit at the front. Like, what? There were always things I didn't hear that people were saying. And now I do wonder if that has led to my anxiety, because I'm always worried that people don't like me, because I feel like people have conversations and I'm like, are they talking about me, like negatively? And I think that stems from not being able to hear what people are saying all the time and possibly being incredibly self-centered. So I just think people are talking about me all the time when they're actually just like, where's the loo? Oh, it's around the corner.
Hello and a warm welcome to Why Care. And today I'm extremely honoured actually to be with the amazing Samantha Baines. So Samantha is a multi-award winning comedian, actress, broadcaster and best-selling author. Her book, Living with Hearing Loss and Deafness, was published in 2023, and she also has 2 children's books, Harriet versus the Galaxy and The Night the Moon Went Out, with deaf main characters who have these amazing adventures. She presents for The One Show, BBC Morning Live, Rip Off Britain, BBC Radio London, and hosts the double award-winning podcast, The Divorce Social, based on her personal experience of divorce. You may recognise her from her acting roles in the Netflix hit show, The Crown, Romesh Ranganathan's Avoidance, Call the Midwife, Silent Witness, and Magic Mike Live, which was directed by Channing Tatum. As a proud deaf and disabled person, Samantha is an advocate for deaf and disabled access and is regularly invited as a speaker in schools and businesses to share her experiences. She's an ambassador for the Royal National Institute for Deaf People and uses her profile to raise awareness for disability campaigns and injustices. She was proud to sign the Taking the Pip public letter and take part in the media campaign around stopping disability cuts in 2025. So a huge, huge warm welcome to you, Samantha. Thank you so much for joining me on Why Care.
Thanks for having me.
This is a phenomenal thing. Like, what a list of...
I know, I was just going to say, what a list. And that's not even all of it.
I know.
I also have ADHD and I'm a mum.
Yes. Thank you. And we will absolutely come on to that, because there were so many things to pick. And I think I said this to you when I was sort of discussing the questions, that I was too much. I mean, we almost need a part 2, I feel, because you have such an incredible background. Now, I've read your book. And thank you for writing it, because as someone who isn't disabled and doesn't have hearing loss, for me, it was just so, I welcomed hearing these experiences, understanding. There were moments definitely when I was reading it and I was like, oh, I'd never thought about that before. And I was particularly moved actually by so many of the stories that you shared, and that from other people as well. It was not just your own stories in there. And just finished the book thinking, gosh, everyone needs to read this, because there's so, I mean, you say, one of the first statistics you say in the book is 18 million people have hearing loss or deafness in the UK, which is like 1 in 3 people. And that particularly struck me, because I was thinking, that's a lot more than I would ever have anticipated. Is it, do you think, then the case that, because if we just randomly picked 1 in 3 people, potentially one of them would have hearing loss, but maybe they wouldn't know it, or that they wouldn't necessarily have been like diagnosed, or...
Yeah, so the 18 million people is based on people who know they have hearing loss and deafness. So there's
people
probably
then
more.
Don't disclose then, because I know a lot of people, like, you know, I know a lot of people, but I mean, you're one of the few people who have told me that they suffer from hearing loss.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say suffer from hearing loss. So I'd say I'm deaf with a lowercase d, and I'm proud to be deaf. So I don't see it as anything wrong with me or anything that's broken or anything that I'm kind of suffering with.
Right. And is that is that a term that I shouldn't be using, like the word suffer?
Maybe people who later in life develop hearing loss might see it as more of a challenge because they're used to living their life with full hearing, and then it's a different way of experiencing the world.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't call it suffering because you suffer when you have a disease, right?
Yes.
And I think there's so much value in the words we use and the impact that they have.
Yeah.
And that, you know, even when you go to an audiologist and they look at your hearing graph and they say, this is the normal level and this is you. So they say normal and then they say that you're not normal. And also they call it hearing loss from an audiology perspective. And that's like a medical terminology. And that is on my book.
Yes, you say that, right.
But a lot of people in the deaf community don't like that term because of loss. You know, and actually...
Yes, something's missing.
Yeah. People brought up in a deaf community and in deaf families don't feel like they're missing anything.
Yes.
It's society. And it's the same with disability. You know, there are certain disabilities that, you know, like if you have a chronic illness and chronic pain... that aren't nice.
Of course.
But that doesn't mean that person can't be proud to be disabled and part of that community. And it's about society disabling us rather than us feeling like there's something wrong with us.
Yes. So I suppose back to my question, which was, is it the case that people just prefer not to disclose then that they don't have full hearing?
So people always say to me, you'd never know. And it's interesting because it's not like I'm trying to hide it. You know, I wear hearing aid jewelry and I talk about it all the time and I have a book with it on the title.
Yeah.
But people still wouldn't know when they first met me. So, you know, it's up to that person as to whether they choose to tell you that they're deaf and they have hearing loss, and they choose to tell you their access needs based on the situation they're in. And I go and talk in businesses about deaf awareness and about disability awareness, and people who work in, you know, a large office, say, will come up to me afterwards, and very often this happens, and say, I've worked here for 10 years, I have hearing aids, and I've never told anyone.
Wow.
I just wear my hair down over my hearing aids. And some people choose not to wear their hearing aids. You know, other people have been born with maybe moderate hearing loss from birth, but never tell anyone about it and just live their life and they're fine with that. So it's an invisible disability the majority of the time, unless you're using British Sign Language and people see you using British Sign Language, and that's kind of a clear marker. And I'm learning it at the moment and it's amazing. But a lot of, it's an invisible disability. So you wouldn't know unless we told you.
Some people who are deaf sound like their voice is different. The way that they express their words.
Yeah, so we
different.
call that a deaf accent.
A deaf accent,
yeah.
Okay.
So there's lots of reasons you might have a deaf accent,
okay,
and that you might not. It's not always linked to the level of deafness that you have, or, you know, so we talk about mild, moderate, severe or profound deafness. So you might have mild deafness and have a deaf accent.
Yes.
You might have profound deafness and not have a deaf accent. So it's all to do with, you know, what age you became deaf, what your surroundings were, if you brought up in a hearing family, if you brought up in a deaf family. And that's not to say if you're brought up in a deaf family using British Sign Language, you'll have a deaf accent, because it doesn't always link.
Right.
So it's about language. It's about, you know, how you develop that language. And there's lots of different varying factors.
Yeah.
And also I'm drama school trained. So I had any accent drilled out of me.
Excellent. At 29 is when you were first told, or the medical people said officially you have hearing loss.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't, I know, and I read the story of you, the moment where you just, that moment backstage, I think, where someone had been saying something to you and someone else right next to you heard perfectly and you hadn't, I think was the story.
Yeah.
Where you just
I
dawned
didn't even
on
get one word.
Right.
Yeah.
And it dawned on you, actually, this there's something else going on here for me. Before that, as a young child, for example, is it that the hearing loss came over time, do you think? Or is it that even in school, you weren't necessarily picking up everything, you just didn't realise?
So I never had a hearing test until I was 29.
Oh, wow.
So, and have you ever had a hearing test?
I don't think I have, but my two daughters in the hospital when they were born.
Yeah, so in 1991, I think it was, they introduced the newborn hearing test.
Right.
So now all children are born and they have hearing tests straight away.
Okay.
But when I was born, I didn't get that.
No, exactly.
And yeah, I went all the way to 29 without having hearing test. And you might never have had a hearing test.
Yes.
So you might be deaf and you have no idea.
Right.
And the interesting thing about being deaf is, there used to be this statistic with RNID that it takes 10 years to notice the signs and actually do something about it with hearing loss and deafness. But it's actually more complicated than that because, and they've agreed that now, and it's not on their marketing material, because I didn't know I was deaf. So the reason I went for a hearing test is I went to the doctor with a type of tinnitus.
Okay.
But I thought I had a spider living in my ear, which sounds like some sort of Channel 5 documentary. But when I was in a loud environment, I'd hear this noise like, whoosh, 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 and it sounded like a spider sort of scrabbling around. Okay. So I thought, there's a spider living in my ear. It doesn't like loud environments. And so it's like, I don't know, crawling back inside my ear. How gross. Also, when I was younger, I saw like this episode of Star Wars or something where they put a thing inside his ear, and Star Trek.
Star Trek. That was one of the films.
Was it?
It's a film, yeah.
Yeah, my dad used to love Star Trek. She looked in my ear and she was like, that is not the case. There's no spider in there. Phew. But let's send you for a hearing test. And at the time, I talk about it in the book, I genuinely thought it was like some sort of doctor bonus scheme. Like they'd recently had some deaf awareness training and they were like, send everyone for a hearing test and then you get like a £50 bonus or something as a GP. So I was like, okay, I'll go for my hearing test so you can get your bonus.
So even then.
Yeah. So, and that story I talk about in the book where I was backstage at a gig and I didn't hear something. Even then, I didn't think I'm deaf. I thought, that's weird. I wonder why that happened.
Wow.
So it wasn't until I went for this hearing test.
Yeah.
And the thing I always say about hearing test is you can't hear what you can't hear, which sounds straightforward. But in an eye test, you can see that you can't see. So you can see that you can't really read the bottom line.
Right.
Or you can see that something's a bit blurry.
Yes.
Whereas in a hearing test,
if you
just don't hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
how do you know it was
there?
They
play all these sounds and you have to press a button. And I thought I was like nailing it. I was genuinely convinced that I'd like aced this test. I was going to walk out and they were going to be like, wow, your hearing's incredible. Engrave my name on a board. So when I came out, and this was NHS as well. So when I came out and they were like, sit down, here's your hearing graph. You have hearing loss in both ears, but it's bad enough on one side that we think you should have at least one hearing aid. It was proper jaw on the floor moment. And then over the last few years, it's been looking back and thinking, actually, I was sitting in the front row at school so I could hear the teacher or understand what they were saying or lip read, but I didn't know that's what it was.
Yes.
And people called me a goody two-shoes and a suck-up. But I was like, I don't know how you understand what's going on in the lesson if you don't sit at the front. Like, what?
Yeah.
And there were always things I didn't hear that people were saying. And now I do wonder if that has led to my anxiety because I'm always worried that people don't like me. And not like in the wider world, because I'm sure there are lots of trolls who hate me. But I just mean like people I know.
Sure.
Because I feel like people have conversations and I'm like, are they talking about me? And I think that like negatively. And I think that stems from not being able to hear what people are saying all the time. And possibly being incredibly self-centered. So I just think people are talking about me all the time when they're actually just like, where's the loo? Oh, it's around the corner.
So, and this leads on, I suppose, to something I was curious about, because there's a whole chapter in your book around deafness and mental health.
I thought you were going to talk about the sex chapter, but yeah, we can talk about that later.
There is a sex chapter in there.
Of
That's
course.
true.
It's important stuff.
That's one of the reasons I purchased it, actually. What are I've read the chapter, obviously, but it's just helpful for the audience, for people listening, actually, just to get a sense of what the relationship is between people who have hearing loss or who are deaf and their mental health. So you've linked, obviously, to potential anxiety. Is there anything else that tends to play out?
Yeah, so deaf people are twice as likely as hearing people to face some sort of mental health issues or problems or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of people that I interview in the book have been through incredibly difficult times, even have been faced with suicidal thoughts because of being deaf.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, people have anxiety, depression. And some of that is linked to the isolation that can come from being deaf. And when people first hear that, they think, oh, it's because you're in your silent world. And there's this joke within the deaf community of like, hearing people always write about deaf people like they're just living in this silent world alone with their thoughts. And that's not what it's like at all.
Right.
Like if you're ever at home, whether you're deaf or hearing, and you're just sitting with your own mind, you know that your mind is never a silent world.
Yes.
Like especially being a busy mum, I'm like, okay, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
I need to stamp her clothes because nursery wants her name in all the things. So I bought a stamp and I need to stamp all the labels. That's what I was doing this morning.
I don't have a stamp. I've got stickers or iron-ons.
There's so many options. Oh, this stamp is great. I'm going to show it to you. It smells like marzipan and it dries in like 2 minutes and it washes off after. Anyway, it's not an ad for the stamp. But, you know, you're always thinking about what's going on. And deaf people are exactly the same. And also there's this preconception that profoundly deaf people or just people who say they are deaf don't hear anything. Now, even some people with profound deafness do still hear stuff. They hear sounds or muffled noises.
Okay.
It's the precision of the sound that you lose. Yes, some deaf people don't hear anything, but it's rarer than you'd think. And people often meet me and they say, oh, you'd never know. And they say, how much can you hear? And I don't like that question because it's a hearing person trying to understand me and so put me in some sort of box of, okay, well, I understand that. I understand if she can hear these things or if she can't hear those things. And actually, if I say to you, I'm deaf, I lip read, I have hearing aids, just take that. You don't need to know that I have mild to moderate hearing loss and it's worse on one side. And I have, you know, now I have 2 hearing aids. I started with 1 and when I had 1, it affected my balance. Like, because it's a bit like asking someone their medical history when they're disabled. And, you know, some disabled people would be very happy to answer that and some deaf people would be very happy to answer. But I just think as a society, we need to get out of this, like, tell me more about that thing. If I tell you I'm deaf, just be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything you need from me?
Yeah.
And then, great.
Yeah. Get that. You talk in your book about this feeling of otherness. And this is a concept and language we often use in diversity, inclusion, just in general, that feeling of just being othered. You're not like most people. But could you expand a little bit on how, particularly when you found out that you had hearing loss, how did that play out for you, that sense of otherness?
It starts when you have your hearing test and they say, this is normal hearing and this is you. You know, it's that word normal. And, you know, I didn't know. I thought I was living in a hearing world and I thought I was hearing. So I thought I was like everyone else in that respect. There is lots of ways I'm not like everyone else because I'm a bit, you know, I'm me. But I thought I was like everyone else in that respect. And then you get told this new information. So whatever that is, whether you're deaf, whether you're newly disabled, you know, I have ADHD, whether you're pregnant, like whatever change it is. And suddenly that shifts your world perspective because you're thinking about what does this mean for me now and the way I've been living before and what's the future going to look like? So, you know, straight away when someone gives you a big bit of information, it makes you think about the future and how that makes you different from the you before you knew that information. And I think with deafness, for me, came that feeling of otherness because at the time, I was like, I don't know anyone else who's deaf. My mum has hearing aids, right? And we'd just never spoken about it. She just got them and then she wore them and then that was it. But I never saw her as like a deaf person. And I don't think I'd ever properly like met or had a conversation or signed or got to know with anyone who was profoundly deaf, who used BSL, who was proud to be deaf, who, you know, wore hearing aid jewelry. So in my circle at that time, I was like, there's no one else like me. I'm about to turn 30. I'm getting a hearing aid. You know, I was doing period dramas at the time. I was like, how am I going to be an actress in a period drama with a modern hearing aid? I'm not going to be able to do it. I was presenting on the radio. I was like, how could you be a deaf radio presenter? Like, I've never heard of that. And I'll happily say I can do all of those things and still do.
And do them fabulously.
Yeah. And I just filmed I filmed other period dramas since I found out I was deaf, but I filmed my first 1950s period drama, which is the work I was doing when I found out I was deaf. And I wore my hearing aid, both of them, and they just styled my hair.
They're covered.
And I even had a lip speaker on set. So a lip speaker is like a BSL interpreter, but because I'm not fluent in BSL because I was never exposed to it, I am learning. It's great. I have a lip speaker. So basically they just do a really clear lip pattern and face me so that I can lip read them easily. So especially on set, you know, if the director's behind a screen, people are in different rooms, they're turning in different directions. I'm well lit, but other people aren't. Of course. It's difficult to hear what's going on. So that's the first time, it was 1950s, I had hearing aids and I had a lip speaker and I was like, oh, it kind of makes me want to cry a little bit just talking about it, because even the lip speaker was like, you keep forgetting that you can look at me.
Right. Yes, because you're so used to just getting
on and just being like, didn't hear that, but hopefully if I need to know it, someone will tell me, you know? And like, there was a point where I can't say what it is yet, annoyingly, but you'll see. Follow me on Instagram and you'll see.
I do.
But there was a point where I was in a scene with another actress and she's facing away from me and she says a line and that's my cue to speak. And obviously it was difficult to hear her. And because of where we were filming, my lip speaker couldn't be in my eye line.
Right.
So, you know, the producer said to me afterwards, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And I said, I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could hear that she was making a noise. So when she stopped making a noise, I spoke.
Right.
And I'd never even really thought about the fact that I do those things. And it's those small things that hearing people don't think of or aren't aware of. And it's every day, you know. There was another scene where I was facing away and I had to start speaking exactly when someone walked past me. So they had to have someone basically wave at me at that point.
Okay.
But, you know, it's really easy to put those things in place. But yeah, it's not something that people think about. But so that feeling of otherness was huge initially.
Yeah.
And I felt that my life was going to change and be awful because of it.
I'm sure.
But actually finding the deaf community and deaf friends and deaf role models, and there are incredible deaf actresses like Sophie Stone, like Nadia Nadaraja, like Rose Ayling-Ellis, that are like leading the way. And you're like, oh, you know, Nadia Nadaraja was the lead in a production at the Globe. And it was subtitled and there was BSL and she's doing it, so I can do it.
Yeah.
And it's actually finding that community is like the best thing. And I talk about that a lot in the book. And that is so, so important. I think for anyone who feels othered in any way, is finding your community because they get you.
Yeah.
They get that feeling of otherness.
Yeah.
They can support you, even if it's just by being a role model and they don't even know they're supporting you in that way.
Right.
I think it's super important.
I just love this story about being on set and having so much thought being put into ensuring that you can be at your best. And it must have just felt so, I guess, sadly unusual to feel that you could be at your best because you were being accommodated for, that the people were adapting and putting things in place for you. But you've had a whole career on stage and screen before anyone was doing that for you.
Yeah, I think there's an amazing role now called an access coordinator in TV.
Okay.
And it's quite a new role in the TV world.
Yeah.
And it means it's that person who basically advocates for you. So before, I would be booked for a job, and then instead of just focusing on the job and like what I need to do and maybe the script and learning the script, or if it's a presenting job, like planning questions or looking at the angles that we're going to look at and the location, and I would also have the extra of whoever I'm working with would ask me loads of questions. Like, so they'd ask my agent some of them, but then it would always come back to me of like, is there anything you need? Do we need to do this for you? What, do you need a BSL interpreter?
Yes.
I'm like, no, I don't use BSL. And I actually met some brilliant access workers, and I did a panel with them actually at BAFTA, which sounds very fancy. And I mean, it was. I was thrilled. But I found out about their job, and one of them suggested to me to add an attachment to my emails, which is like an access document. And I totally recommend like everyone does this. So it's an access document. I basically put all the information that I've had to tell people again and again over the years.
Right.
People actually read it. Yeah. Wild. And so, once I was booked for this job, people have started reading my access document, and then they'll email me and say, we've booked you a lip speaker. And I don't know, the very British sort of grown up, non-disabled thinking I was hearing woman in me is like, oh no, you don't have to do that. I don't want to make a fuss, please. And then the activist in me is like, yeah, read my access document, book me a lip speaker. And I feel like there's always these two warring people. But yeah, there was an event I did recently, and it was a speaking event. And the event was all around celebrating everyone's differences and us as women. And I got there, and I'd asked for captions in advance. My document was on my email the whole time. Full email exchange. So the person had lots of chances to read the document because it's attached to every email, even the replies. I asked for captions for the audience and for me because I'm deaf. Got there, and they were like, oh, captions, I don't think it's going to work.
Oh, gosh.
And I was like, well, that was one of the requirements of me speaking. Then they got captions for me because I was on a panel. So I wasn't able to lip read all the other panelists because we were in a row.
Yeah, of course.
So they got captions for me. Great. And I was like, well, what about captions for the audience?
Yeah.
And they were like, well, no one in the audience has told us that they need captions. Said 18 million people in the UK,
say,
one in three. I'm sure some of them will find it useful. And, the person running this event, which was all about celebrating our differences and being proud
the irony
and
of it.
Inspiring an audience, was very annoyed that I was saying, no, we really need, even though we talked about it before, it was in my access document. So we did have captions in the end, and lots of people said that they were useful for them. But, that is just an example of like day to day, and that was like a 1 hour speaking event in a full day. That's like one smaller job of the way that deaf and disabled people have to fight for their access constantly. And also, I was then starting a panel where I was meant to be inspiring, in inverted commas, in a bit of a bad mood because I felt like I'd been really difficult,
Well,
for getting access that I'd asked for previously.
And that's it, isn't it? When you walk through the world each and every day and you are made to feel like you either have to just accept that you haven't been accommodated for again, or you battle your way for fairness, for equity. And I can only assume that falls part of some of the reasons in that chapter on mental health, where, you know, either you accept or you fight.
Yeah.
And actually both, neither of them are, in my view, okay. That's not okay.
Yeah.
And I think as society we need to do better. So there isn't you as in I'm talking about the deaf community in general now, but always having to make the request, always having to feel like you're having an argument in order to get something that you need.
And look, I love the deaf community, but I am doing an event organised by deaf people, and they have BSL interpreters. And when I asked for a lip speaker, they were like, what?
Okay.
Oh, we haven't planned for that. Yeah. So, you know, we're all...
Okay, we're human, I get it.
Yeah, we're all human. But I think there is that huge extra toll on anyone that feels othered, disabled people, deaf people, you know, whatever it is, that we constantly have to fight for our rights and we constantly have to advocate for ourselves. And I'm an activist. I mean, again, in inverted commas, because I think it's a really weird title, but I'm an activist and I still have days where I don't want to fight. I'm just like, okay, fine. Yeah, I won't be able to hear anything today, but sure. You know, I'm invited to film screenings all the time and I can't be bothered every time to ask for captions. Often I do. I mean, nearly every time I do. And then I might get there and there won't be captions. I just go, okay, well, I'm going to miss half the film, but, you know.
Yeah.
Sit an evening out.
I can get dressed up and go on the red carpet.
I can put my lippy on.
Hey, everyone. If you're enjoying this episode and want to further expand your thinking and develop your leadership, I've written a book that you might find useful. It's called Beyond Discomfort: Why Inclusive Leadership is So Hard and What You Can Do About It. If you're a leader or aspiring to be one, and you're trying to navigate the challenges of building truly inclusive organisations, this book is for you. Leading inclusively can often be hugely uncomfortable, and the reality is making real change takes effort, self-awareness, and often needs you to lean in to some tough truths. And that's exactly what my book addresses. Beyond Discomfort dives into the why behind inclusive leadership challenges. It explores the biases, fears, and blind spots that often hold leaders back from creating truly diverse and inclusive workplaces. But here's the best part. It doesn't leave you hanging. It provides actionable strategies that you can start implementing today to make a real impact, not just in your workplace, but in your own growth as a leader. With practical insights, real-world examples, and exercises to help you reflect on your own leadership style, this book will guide you through overcoming the discomfort and unlocking the power of inclusion in your organisation. As a YCare listener, you can get 30% discount on your copy of Beyond Discomfort by going to my publisher's website, practicalinspiration.com, and using code YCARE30. That's YCARE30. All this information is in this episode show notes page of my website, nadianagamutu.com/podcast. Grab your copy of Beyond Discomfort today. Now back to the show. So, in your book, I'm going to quote you.
Okay.
You say, I need to know how close the toilets are in all situations.
Yeah.
The toilets can be a sanctuary for deaf people like me, especially when the noise gets too loud or listening gets too tiring. And again, this was another one of the moments in the book where it just had never occurred to me how tiring, exhausting, how it would feel, and the sorts of coping mechanisms deaf people with hearing loss would have to put in place in order to navigate the world. So as a deaf person with a hearing aid, can you give some examples of ways in which you adapt, some of your, I suppose, coping mechanisms, or just ways that you adapt to the world?
The toilets thing is also linked to the fact I have ADHD, so I get overwhelmed, and I have anxiety. So I'm like, what if I need to wee? But quiet spaces are really important for People with ADHD, yes, and deaf people.
Okay.
Because, and it's an interesting one because on the surface of it, a lot of people think, well, you're deaf, so why do you need a quiet, like, why does sound bother you?
Yeah.
And obviously if you're, profoundly deaf, then loud noises might still bother you because it's out of the norm.
Exactly.
But like a background noise might not bother you as much. With my deafness and with hearing aids can be incredibly difficult when there's background noise because modern hearing aids are getting better and better, and they have directional microphones and you can focus them on in front of you, so they can pick up the person in front of you more than everything else.
Yeah.
But, the history of hearing aids is that it's basically like a tiny little speaker that makes everything a bit louder and sharper.
Okay.
So hearing aids don't cure, in inverted commas, deafness. They never will. So if you get hearing aids, you will never have full hearing, like a full hearing person. But they might help a little bit in certain environments because they'll make things louder and sharper. When it comes to background noise, it's extra difficult. So if I'm in a restaurant and there's music on and there's speakers all around the room and we're underneath the speaker. In some restaurants, it's so difficult to sit not near a speaker, but that is always what I try to do. So soft furnishings really help absorb sound. So if there's like plants in a corner, they absorb sound too. Or if there's like a curtain, that helps.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like all blank concrete walls and really high ceiling with metal, as is very fashionable in some places, that's really difficult for me. So say if I was in a canteen-like environment and I was put on a table in the middle of the room with a really high ceiling, that would be a bit of a nightmare. Even if I'm in a quiet environment, I still might not be able to tell every word that you're saying.
Okay.
Then if you add background music, it makes it more difficult because I can't use a lot of the hearing that I have.
Yeah.
If you add background music and talking at the same level that you're talking, makes it even more difficult. If you add bad lighting, more difficult, facing away, or if we're in an environment where you're not facing me. So say we're like sitting in a line.
Like a panel. Yeah, exactly.
Like a panel. So then that's also so my hearing's taken and then now my lip reading's taken.
Got it.
Even the best lip reader in the world is not going to be able to lip read every word because certain sound looks the same on the lips.
Right.
So often, like if I have a lip speaker, like we were talking about earlier, they'll be doing a lip pattern and then they might also sign the first letter of the word, whether it's a P or a B, to make it clearer.
Okay.
So, and then add that layer into me trying to lip read you.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time it's like a puzzle. So I'm like, I know she was talking about her dog. So she said something that looked like bore, which could be bar or it could be paw but she's talking about her dog, so it's probably paw. So if you think about the amount of concentration that takes.
Yeah, okay.
And then you're in an evening out, a few hours or whatever, you are so tired afterwards.
Exhausted.
So when I used to do stand-up comedy, it wasn't being on stage doing the stand-up because no one else was talking and I was beautifully lit and making everyone laugh. It was the bit in the green room before and traveling there on the train and watching the other comedians and talking to the audience afterwards or coming out and ordering a drink from the bar when there's something else on stage going on.
Just the environment.
And that was every night. And I'd be so tired the next day from doing all of that of an evening that I wasn't able to do anything else. So it became a decision of what do I want to focus on? Can I still be funny in other environments? Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. I completely understand that now that you've explained it. So, but it makes, because I'm obviously work in the business world and it therefore makes me think, well, okay, we've said this over now a few times, 1 in 3. Therefore, the chances are every single organisation out there that's sort of a decent size will have a good number of people who have hearing loss.
And don't wait for them to ask for you to caption things. Just caption it.
What else, apart from captions, you've spoken a little bit about the design of the environment, the office environment or whatever working environment they're in. Anything else? that you'd recommend?
Have acoustically pleasing spaces. So I know everyone's really into open plan offices, but that is a nightmare.
Right.
So if you have deaf people on your staff, which you probably will, or if you are a deaf person, but maybe you don't want to disclose for whatever reason, try and get a desk with your back to the wall or in a corner, or, not in the middle where everyone's walking past, not next to the tea or coffee station or near the kitchen where everyone's going to be clanging around.
Yes.
'Cause that's going to make your life a nightmare. Noise cancelling headphones, I think businesses should provide them. And yes, even if you have hearing aids, you can put them over the top. So you need the big ones, obviously not the in-ear ones, because that's where your hearing aids are. Sending things in advance and having things written down. So if you're in like a board meeting, it's going to be hard to lip read the people next to you.
Yes.
And it's going to take a lot of concentration if there's lots of different people talking, and if there's maybe like a presentation as well. So if you can send the presentation slides ahead of time and after time, so people can go back through the presentation because they might have missed it because they've been concentrating on lip reading the people in the room and not been able to be present. Or if you think, someone's not speaking up in those environments, think why. Is it because that environment is inaccessible and they're just trying to understand what's actually being said, let alone like put their hand up and talk? I think I'm really good at talking because I have ADHD, but also because when I'm talking, I don't have to listen. So if I just dominate the conversation, it's a lot less tiring.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk a bit about your ADHD, because you were 38 years old when you found out that you had ADHD.
This year.
Oh.
You're meant to not say because obviously I look younger than 38.
Exactly.
Thank you. I thought that was like 10 years ago. That's the I got from you just there.
That's exactly it. I'm curious because there's a few people I've spoken to that were like, I think my son or my daughter, etc., might have ADHD or might be autistic, but we're not going to bother with the tests because, they are who they are, and, a label it's not going to be helpful to label. Did you
I love labels.
Okay. Okay. So it was helpful to you then, was it, to have someone say you have ADHD to help you process how, I suppose, differently you were experiencing the world in your mind compared to some other people, why you might have found certain things easy or more difficult compared to other people?
Do you know what? I think it's more useful no, it's useful for me, but it's more useful for you. So I have ADHD. That helps you understand me a bit more.
Okay.
And I think my mum's generation are very like, it's too many labels nowadays. Everyone's got a label. Yeah, but labels are useful. I have labels on things in my kitchen. It helps. Like,
does it help?
Like if I tell you I'm deaf, which is a label, that's going to help you understand how maybe you can interact with me. If I tell you I have ADHD, you'll understand that if we meet up and I'm a bit like scatty and all over the place, you'll be like, okay, well, I expected that. Or I know that's because ADHD. She doesn't hate me. She's not looking at other things because she's bored of our conversation.
Yes.
It's because she's easily distracted because she has ADHD. But also it explained to me, I think being diagnosed later in life, explains to me so much of my life that made me think I was a bad person. Gosh. So like being late for my friends.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a running joke among my friends that I talked about myself a lot. And, because I'm an actress as well, there's this whole, and then I was like, oh my God, am I really selfish and self-centered? But actually, when you have ADHD, the way you relate to people is, so say you're telling me about your holiday. This happened earlier. You were telling me about your holiday in Cornwall.
Yes.
I said, I went to Cornwall recently and I told you about my holiday in Cornwall. That's an ADHD way of relating.
Yeah.
Because you've told me a story about you. Now I'm going to share a story about me. Look, we're the same. Other neurodiverse people might have just asked you more questions about your holiday to show that they're interested in your holiday.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's not how my brain works.
Right.
So I'm not good at asking people questions. So they think that, apart from when I'm interviewing, obviously, and I have to, but a lot of the time we just have a chat. But people have thought in the past that I'm not interested in them.
Got it. Okay.
Or I like the sound of my own voice, which, I mean, let's be honest, I do also. I'm on the radio. I have to listen to it. I do podcasts. Because I relate in that way.
Yeah.
Also, I'm a comedian.
Yeah.
I'm a storyteller. I like telling stories.
Yeah.
But it explained so much to me. Being late, mixing things up in my diary.
Yeah.
Getting on a train, and I'd bought a train ticket for 7 a.m. in the morning instead of on the 7 p.m., which is the one I was on. You know, and those are just tiny things, but getting overwhelmed when someone tells me too many things at once, or getting bored when someone tells me only one thing at once and I'm not allowed to do anything else. And people always say you do so many things in your career. And oh my God, I'm so glad I know I have ADHD, because now I can just be like, ADHD. And they just go, okay. Whereas before they'd be like, why though? Why do you do so many things? Which is your favorite? You have to pick one. I don't understand you.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm just like ADHD, and they're like, okay. You will help your child so much if you know and they know that they have ADHD, or they're autistic, or they're deaf. And if they're deaf, let them learn BSL, and you learn BSL too.
Yes.
It won't stop them from talking. It won't stop their language development. It will improve it.
Yes.
Because historically, parents were told not to let their children use British Sign Language because it would halt their speaking and their language development.
Okay.
And it's actually the opposite. I mean, they might choose not to speak eventually and use BSL, but they might have chosen that anyway and resent you. So if you have a deaf child, you and them learn BSL and find out everything you can about it. And if you think your child might have ADHD, autism, be neurodiverse in any way, find out, because it'll be useful for the school.
Yeah.
You'll probably get free stuff. It'll be useful for you, and it'll be so useful for them.
Yeah.
Labels are good. My pasta is labelled, and so am I.
My pasta is labelled.
I feel like I'm going to use that as a quote, like on my Instagram.
That should be the title of this episode, I think. My pasta is labelled, and so am I.
Yeah.
Proudly. Now, final question, I think, around being a female comedian, because having I've tried to find out, like, what's the ratio of sort of male comedians to female comedians in the UK. And I think it was like, the ratio was something like 89 to 11. So approximately to every 89 men, there's only 11 female comedians, right? Which didn't surprise me at all. I mean, the fact that there were, when I Googled like female British comedians, there was a good list and a good number who I recognised. And that made me feel good. So I think that the industry has come a long way from that perspective, that at least you exist and that you can have a career. Have you experienced anything throughout your career as a female comedian where you thought, that's really unfair, or how come I'm not being even considered for this lineup, or how come I'm having to work so hard to be headlining?
100%.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Loads. I mean, I do think now it is a lot better, but, you know, we have a female comedian WhatsApp group, which really scares male comedians, but good. And we often send each other pictures of all white male lineups still now. But there are a lot of brilliant female comedians that have started like in the last 5 years and that are doing brilliant stuff and that have said that they don't feel like they've really experienced that much sexism, which is incredible.
Right.
I did.
You did?
I won a stand-up competition against all men, and the promoter, it was voted for by the audience, and the promoter who like ran the club said the only reason I won is because I have a big tits. I do have big tits, and they could win awards, but this award was for comedy, and I won it for that.
Thank you very much.
And they're bigger now because they had a baby as well. But yeah, so stuff like that.
That's terrible.
Like,
I mean...
Yeah, I did gigs where the MC in the green room with all other male comedians bent me over and pretended to have sex with me from behind as a joke. I was told that in a car on the way to a gig that was far away, I was told I'd have to sit on one of the male comedians' laps. I mean, I could go on. When I did my first gig at a very well-known comedy club, I was introduced as she's a woman and it's her very first time here. And I don't think it was. I think it was like my second anyway. But what straight away you're saying to an audience, I'm defining her as a woman. So she's going to be one of those ones that's not very good. You know, that, those terrible female comedians. And also it's her first time, as if I was like brand new and not just been trying to get a gig at a club that only books all men every night of the week. I'd been going for like years at this point. And also all the comedians on that bill were men, and they were sitting backstage and they were like really hostile and like, so how long have you been doing stand-up? You know, do you have an hour ready to go?
Wow.
And like making me feel like I shouldn't be there.
Right.
But my reaction to that was just to annoy them by saying, oh no, I just started, but I thought it'd be fun to come and do this gig, and you know, the promoter booked me, so see how it goes, and just be like, I'm on the same bill as you, and I just started and you've been going for 20 years, so but yeah, I had terrible times. It wasn't,
oh my gosh,
it wasn't that, I mean, that's the thing I loved was the being on stage, talking about life and making people laugh.
Yeah.
I didn't love everything around it. And actually a lot of comedians who are women who I gigged with years, you know, when I was first starting out, have stopped doing stand. I mean, some are still going and are on telly and amazing. But it is tough, and a lot of them I've spoken to have stopped and gone into writing books. A lot of us have said, like, it's this model of comedy which was created in working men's clubs and is still the same model and hasn't been updated or changed in any way, and you're still expected to fit into that mold, which is 50 more years old. And it just doesn't work for a lot of people and a lot of women and trans people, you know. And it shouldn't be like that. And I do want to perform more, you know. I do hosting, but I don't call myself a stand-up comedian anymore, even though I did it for 7 years and I did a UK tour and I sold out 2 Edinburgh runs. But I'm still trying to work out in my head what the version of it is that is more accessible and lovely and welcoming, and I'm
how
not
do we
sure what that is.
What's the disruption that this in? And it's like a whole, like a version of the iPhone kind of coming, like disrupting a whole industry.
How can we be the Apple to that Windows?
Exactly.
No offense, Windows.
Yes.
Or Apple.
Yeah. For season 6, I have a 5-question quick fire round.
Okay. I love a quick fire round.
Okay.
That's how my brain works.
Are we ready? Okay, excellent. Your funniest lost in translation moment with hearing aids?
Oh my God. Funniest?
Or the moment that sticks out for you?
I think when I was hosting Magic Mike, people used to shout things out, and they were normally like encouraging things or like sexy things, but quite a lot of the time I didn't know what they were shouting, so I'd just be like, yeah, and like thrust. And that was my way of dealing with it, because it was such a loud environment anyway, and there was like music, and then like obviously the women were like drinking quite a lot, and it was like sexy, and then they'd shout something at me.
No idea.
And I don't think it was never horrible, it was always lovely.
Okay.
I had no idea what they were saying, possibly because they were too drunk or possibly because I couldn't hear. So I'd just be like, and just do a thrust. So I don't know if that's a lost in translation or my response to it, but It worked every time.
Everyone's
They'd be
happy.
like, woo.
Your favourite film as a child that you watched over and over?
We were talking about this the other day. My partner watched the same film, Robin Hood with the foxes, the cartoon.
Oh, I love that
and
film.
he was obsessed with it too. And I really fancied the fox Robin. And my mum said I watched it over and over again. There you go.
There were some good songs in that.
I just remember the waterfall scene.
Oh,
It was like a love scene.
it was pretty.
They didn't have sex, obviously, because it's a children's film, but they could have.
Yeah. Weirdest moment on stage or screen?
Weirdest?
I don't know.
I've done some very weird things. My first acting job was on Lee Nelson's Well Funny. Oh no, that wasn't my first. It was one of the first. Lee Nelson's Well Funny People. And I was playing a posh woman who was going to a party dressed as a chav.
Okay.
So they dressed me as like a fancy dressed chav.
Right.
And that's what it was called in the program. So like I wore 2 different coloured bras on top of one another. And then my hair was like gelled to my face. And then I had like a pink top and like leggings, and I looked terrible. So that is probably one of the weirdest. Although recently when I did Avoidance with Ramesh Ranganathan, I was like the NCT officer, which if you've never had kids, it's like you basically go to classes and they tell you how terrible birth is going to be.
Yeah.
And normally the person leading it is weird. And so I had to be a weird NCT leader and talk about like babies' poo colours. And at one point, it was like weird but fun. I said to the director, can I do this? And I had like a toy baby. And I said, can I do this scene as if I'm breastfeeding the toy baby, but just never reference it? And he was like, sure.
And you did.
And I did.
Oh, it sounds like so much fun. Most underrated snack?
I love a pepperami.
Do you?
I don't think they're underrated though, are they? I think lots of people like them.
I don't think you'd come out and say I eat pepperami regularly.
Why?
I don't know. It's not very particularly healthy, is it?
It's meat.
It's meat.
It's protein. I don't know if it's all necessarily the meat. It's all meant to be pork. Anyway, I like a pepperami.
Excellent.
Also, I love medium peri-peri Nando's sauce.
Ooh.
And I always have the biggest jar of it in the fridge, and I put it on it. I put it on rice, put it on everything.
Excellent.
And Frazzles.
Oh, Frazzles. I mean, that takes me back. I mean, they're still going, which says something.
Yeah,
I think.
They are underrated.
They are.
They haven't had their moment.
Yeah, I think. Although I do wonder how they get that flavour so...
Bacony.
Yeah. The person you'd most like to work with, who you haven't yet, obviously, ever before.
Well, it used to be Victoria Wood. Obviously, she died.
Yes.
But before she died, I met her. Oh, this is a big name droppy story. Here we go. I was backstage at Monty Python, kind of by accident, because I did a gig. My life is so like this. It's so weird. Sometimes I end up in these situations. I'm like, how did I get here? I did a gig. I think it was the gig where I won the competition because I had big tits. And there was an American lady in the audience who was lovely, and we started chatting in the toilets afterwards. Anyway, she followed me on Twitter, and then I put on Twitter that I was going, back when it was good Twitter, I put on Twitter that I was going to Monty Python. She DM'd me and was like, oh, I'm Eric Idle's assistant. I can get you backstage. So I was like, okay, cool. So then she brought us backstage, and then before everyone like mingles backstage, all the VIPs, and Victoria Wood was there. And I was like, I'm going to have to go over and say something because she's incredible. And I used to watch her growing up.
Yeah.
But I went over, and ADHD had verbal diarrhea in her face. Like I just, for a while, just kept talking. And she physically backed away. And then she said, oh, where do you gig? Because I was like, I'm a comedian.
Yeah.
You inspired me. You're incredible. She was, where do you gig? And I was like, anyway, they'll have me. And then like laughed like a maniac. And then I was with my ex-husband at the time, and he was like, you should have said like actual places. Like you made yourself sound weird, and actually you could have been like, I am a comedian. I do stuff. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I always wanted to work with her so that I could prove to her that I can like hold a sentence together. So it was sad. But that night we ended up, because she was Eric Idle's assistant, I thought that was it in the mingling.
Yeah.
That she invited us backstage afterwards. We ended up in the dressing room with Eric Idle, Eddie Izzard.
Oh, wow.
Terry, like loads of them having a beer. It was so weird. I was like, what is going on? It was fun.
Very cool.
None of them gave me a job though.
No.
Since, never seen them again. But it was a fun anecdote.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so it would have been Victoria Wood. Yeah. Now it's Judi Dench, because she just looks like a laugh.
She's amazing, isn't she? Well, listen, Samantha, it's been such a pleasure to have you on Why Care. If people want to follow you...
Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have a new Substack.
Oh, okay.
Just my name. Follow me for updates.
Excellent. So just your name. So
Samantha Baines everywhere. I own a social media management marketing company, so I have to be on social media. And that's called Penguin in the Room. Also, find us online.
Excellent. So everything that Samantha and I have spoken about today is going to be on the usual show notes page at nadianagamutu.com/podcast, including obviously this episode. You can find it on YouTube, obviously, as well. A huge honour. So honestly, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing everything that you have today with me and for answering all my funny questions about, hearing loss from someone who needs to be educated. And I'm so sure there's so many people who are going to be listening who, like me, have learned so much from speaking to you. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for reading the book.
It was fabulous.
Did it make you laugh too?
It did.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you found it valuable and insightful. If you enjoyed the show, I'd love for you to stay connected. Make sure you follow me on YouTube so you can be the first to know when new episodes are released. You can find me by searching for Nadia Nagamutu or just clicking the link in the show notes. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate and review on your podcast player. Your feedback helps me reach more people and make the show even better. It only takes a few seconds and it really means the world to me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next time.